Get your little punk ass off my car!
What is it about driving cars that makes you all such assholes?
Hey!
Maybe you can hum the theme song, won't hold it against you if you get parts wrong. While the memory's not too strong, there's a piece of you from a time long gone. So while these fuzzy warm feelings remain, question we ask is still the same. Is it a treasure or just plain lame? Is this still good?
Hello, and welcome back to Is This Still Good? A podcast about, sitting around and watching Joseph Kahn music videos. I'm a host, a sage.
Is that what we do? I'm Gavin.
That's what we did today.
Yeah, okay. That makes sense. That checks out. And today with us we have...
Returning.
Guest. Named...
Adam.
Hey!
Don't keep us in suspense, you son of a bitch.
Gotta bring some tension to this pod.
And what else did you bring other than tension?
Oh, wait, am I responsible for this?
Well, no, honestly, I pitched it to you, but now that bit's dead. So we're talking Torque today. The 2004 Joseph Kahn film. Is that 2004?
I believe so, yeah.
I mean,
it
sure.
was shot in 2003. It was shelved for a year by the studio because they didn't like it.
So wait, I'd never heard of this movie before. I'd never heard the name Joseph Kahn, really, although I realized upon looking at his IMDb, I had seen a few of his works.
Right, so Joseph Kahn is a music video director who has also made some movies. And I have always overestimated his overall importance to film, because there just happened to be a few things that were important in my life.
What were those things?
Torque.
Oh, okay.
I was talking with Adam earlier, and we'd both seen Torque as a...
I didn't see it when it came out. I saw it probably 2010.
Right, so a couple years. Did you see it because Detention was coming out?
So I believe I found Torque and Joseph Kahn in general because he came on the Slash Filmcast, which I was a fan of and still listen to them. That show's been going on for 15 years. Yeah, I think he was out promoting Detention, and the guys on the show were fans of Torque. Sort of ironically, it's hard to tell how genuine they were, and I don't know, they just sold it so well that I went out and I watched it. I think probably on Netflix.com, and when they would send you the DVDs, and yeah, that's how I discovered.
You shout out Netflix.com, but specifically about their DVD service.
Okay, well, not to get on a tangent 3 minutes into this podcast, but I am still a member of the DVD mailers. I still get them.
Do you still get DVDs? Which DVD do you have right now?
I just had. Well, I'm finishing up the AFI Top 100. As well as rewatching Torque. I'm watching the greatest films of all time. And,
the two most important uses for Netflix.
Yeah, so I just got sent Blade Runner and Swing Time. One of those has blackface, and one doesn't. I'll let you guess which one.
Right, it was the 80s.
So, yeah, Joseph Kahn has been on my radar, thanks to Slash Filmcast, for about 10 years. And in that time, he's made 2 more movies, and none of them have made money. But he continues to make the biggest music videos of all time. It's weird. There are 2 Joseph Kahns. One is extremely successful, and one is an abject failure.
Yeah.
There's also Internet Joseph Kahn, which we'll talk about later, who is an entire third person.
Right. So yeah, I do want to hear your story, Sage, but just the first time I think I heard Joseph Kahn's name was when you made me go watch Bodied with you. I'd never heard of him before, and you were like, "This is one of my favorite directors. I love it when he's making an indie film. Eminem's producing it. Here it is."
Yeah, I stand by that statement without really having evidence to back it up. He is one of my favorite directors because he's made 3 kind of insane movies that I'm shocked that they exist. I guess Torque ultimately is just a more stylized version of a Fast and Furious movie. Joseph Kahn said he intended to, and that is going to be my just overall description of Torque. He intended to make a dumb movie for smart people, and he definitely succeeded in at least half of that phrase.
Yep.
He made a movie for smart people.
So what's his third movie?
Adam, can you sum up Detention? Because I don't know if I can.
Yeah, so Detention is, I guess, a horror comedy time travel movie.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess that's how you would describe it. I don't know. It's like if Primer had dick jokes in it. That's basically what Detention is.
Spoilers for Primer, which I haven't seen yet, but I assumed it had dick jokes in it.
That's your definition of spoiler?
Detention was marketed as like, oh, here's a horror comedy that's got Dane Cook and the boy from Hunger Games, the non-Hemsworth one.
Josh Hutcherson.
You mean
Thank
Dane
you,
Cook
yeah.
of Torque fame?
Yeah, Dane Cook is the the Robert De Niro of Joseph Kahn's filmography. He's his muse, I guess.
Wow.
But yeah, Detention is extremely dense, and I want to rewatch it again. Sage, you rewatched it last night, right?
No, I tried to, and then I watched the trailer, which already has a joke about how terrible Torque is in it, and I can't remember if Detention is good or not, but that trailer is garbage.
I just mean that it looks like Clapton's gonna ask out Ione, which makes about as much sense as that stupid movie Torque.
I remember Detention being just genre shifting all the time in a way that was very, like, ADD focused. Like, yeah, all the things you said, except it's also made for MTV. It's not literally, but that is the feeling of Detention.
Well,
Yeah.
and has anything he made not felt like it was made for MTV?
No.
Okay,
Yeah,
just checking.
I guess the only thing he's made that seems like, because most of his music videos, and he's made like hundreds, and we were all just kind of going through his Wikipedia page, and I would encourage anyone listening to this to pull up his like videography. But so many of them have like a real ADD tongue-in-cheek quality. There's only a couple that seem actually earnest and serious. I would say like the Eminem Rihanna Love the Way You Lie video is kind of serious, but for the most part everything is real like.
But there was
winky
also a
and
lot.
Isn't this crazy?
That music video is a lot. I was just watching it, and everything's on fire. It's a song about It's a song about like domestic abuse featuring Eminem and Rihanna, which feel like really weird people to talk about that message. But also, I don't know. Maybe
Well,
the right people. I
Joseph
don't
Kahn has directed
understand.
a Chris Brown video too, so.
Unsurprising.
But who knows where that falls in the Chris Brown timeline. Like I said, he's got like too big of a career as a music video director for me to like speak on it entirely. But just watching a few of them, yeah, I'm pretty sure he has ADD. I don't know if you can diagnose somebody from watching their music
art
videos,
projects.
but like Michael Bay, he's very ADD. Like just whatever would be the coolest thing to do right now. But unlike Michael Bay, I think he's actually trying to say something generally. Even if he doesn't have the best script, to segue us back to Torque, which has a terrible, terrible script.
I do want to quickly shout out, audience, go rewatch the Toxic video by Britney Spears if you haven't, in terms of like the exact definition of what we're talking about, because that is the most batshit insane music video I've ever seen, I think. It's a lot.
Yeah,
and
I
it's
don't think
everywhere.
I don't know if we would have time to name all the important contributions Joseph Kahn has made to the music video library, but I encourage you to look it up, because if you're wondering if you've seen a Joseph Kahn music video, the answer is yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's also has the record of the most expensive music video. I forgot the name of the song, but it's a Janet Jackson video from like 2005 that was made for $2.5 million. Which is like, now that's like the budget of a Blumhouse feature film, and the fact that they were giving music videos that big of budgets at one point in time is kind of crazy to me.
Gavin, how much was the last music video you worked on? How much did it cost?
Not $2.5 million. Let's just go with that. Like sub $1 million. Less than $1 million.
One of those SAG ultra lows. Got it. Gavin, you want to try to hit us with the plot of Torque?
Well, I felt like Adam was about to introduce something specific to it, but otherwise I can.
Adam, you want to
go ahead.
segue us into Gavin recapping the plot of Torque?
No, I was just basically commenting that I think Joseph Kahn's movies are only as good as his scripts, and this is, I would say, his worst movie because it's by far the worst script. Like, this is... the script for this movie is what you think the movie is. Like, if you just see it, 2 for $5 at, like, a gas station, a DVD bin. Like,
Yeah.
it is written like that movie you think it is. And then Joseph Kahn just brings a whole other level to it. So yeah, the plot for this movie is terrible. Why don't you explain it, Kevin?
Just to echo on that, this does feel like I remember watching Asylum movies, and the first one I grabbed, I actually dug. And Asylum is famously that company that makes like Transmorphers. They did
Titanic.
I worked
2.
for the Asylum.
Titanic 2, Sharknado. They very famously like do the knockoff versions of mainstream movies.
Adam, which ones did you work on?
It was originally called Mommy, Timmy Made a Dinosaur, but they changed the title to Jurassic School. I think it's streaming on Netflix. If you go to my IMDb page, I'm, quote, known for that. It's my number one credit, even though I worked for it on one day, and I got paid $75 in like a personal check, which is illegal. Like, but it was the first job I got when I moved to LA, or one of the first ones. It was like a favor because I knew the AD. And it was awful. Like they basically, I was told the conditions were so poor because it was a kids movie. Like kids were like throwing up because they were being held in a room that was like too hot for too long.
Wow.
The Asylum, they're criminals. They're bad people.
Yeah,
Don't give them your money, even if it's funny.
I too have worked on an Asylum movie, but I don't have as good a story because it didn't involve children.
I should
just
say
as much
allegedly
low wages
for all that
and
for legal reasons. Don't sue me.
Yeah.
So.
Don't sue the pod either. Shout out to Asylum.
Yeah, Adam's story, allegedly.
All the love. But this does feel like the good version of the knockoff cheap movie, which I don't think is something they were trying to avoid doing. This is very much not quite parody, but like earnest thievery of the Fast and the Furious movie. So we open up on a drag race between two cars. They're just hauling ass down a desert road, but then a motorcycle drives between them, showing that cars are lame and motorcycles rule, which is kind of the thesis of the movie.
How would you phrase that if you had to write it on some signs that spun in the distance from all the speed?
I believe cars suck.
Right.
Is the intersection that they pass through, conveniently enough.
Yeah, Cars treated Suck Avenue.
Yeah, in a real Captain Underpants style gag, the sign spins and suddenly says "Cars suck."
But yeah, so we're introduced to our hero, whose name escapes me, but he really likes motorcycles, and he thinks people are
Ford.
His name is Ford.
Ford.
Which I only know because the bad guy's name is Henry, so they're clearly making a comment about how cars suck. But it's muddled because the hero is Ford, who Ford I don't think makes motorcycles. I think Ford only makes cars.
Yeah, that's my one problem with this movie.
Yeah, everything else with this movie is perfect, but...
Anyway, we realize that this motorcycler, he beats up the car guys because he's also a talented street fighter. He has a couple of friends. He's got an Asian American friend and a Latin American friend. And they all hang out and drive motorcycles, and they haven't seen him in a while because he's been on the run because he got wrapped up with some bad dudes who had some motorcycles full of crystal meth. And he just bounced out on his girlfriend when he hid the crystal meth motorcycles in her shop till the last minute when the feds showed up. And then, so on top of that, they're also hanging out with a black motorcycle gang called the Reapers, who's led by Ice Cube, whose little brother is just an annoying upstart who keeps getting his nose broken by just anyone that he steps to until the guys who own the crystal meth motorcycles in the first place murder him, framing Ford, so that they have to go on the run again, but this time down the 5 towards LA. And Adam Scott is there.
Best part of the movie,
who's an FBI agent. And all the pieces have to come together with these ragtag group of motorcyclers who then have to prove their innocence by exposing the real crystal meth murderers to be Henry and his gang.
Oh, and Gavin, how do they show that? Is there some sort of fingerprint on the bicycles?
Oh, right, yeah. To prove the murder weapon, which in this case, there's a lot of people getting beat up with bike chains, and every bike chain has a fingerprint. Not a you can track down anyone by their bike chain. Everyone knows this, of course, except for the federal agents, who may have just been overlooking it because, surprise, Adam Scott's in on the whole thing, and he wants his crystal meth, too. This is good as description.
That's the whole movie, isn't it? Yeah.
Surprisingly convoluted for how simple this movie feels.
It is more complicated than it needs to be, but mostly because, like, almost none of those complications make any fucking sense.
Nor do they really matter. You know who the good guys are and you know who the bad guys are. There's never any confusion there.
Yeah.
And what it does is it sets up, just a bunch of great motorcycle antics. And Ice Cube's pretty one note, but he's fun to watch. I don't know.
Yeah, you know from, like, once the movie actually starts, Ice Cube is a bad guy who's going to be secretly good because he's Ice Cube, and Schultz is obviously the bad guy with no redeeming qualities. That's literally, Matt Schultz.
I would say Ice Cube is
being
not
Fast
even
Furious.
a bad guy. He's just, cares about respect and he cares about his family.
Yeah, he cares about Inglewood.
He's
It is
really
weird that-
eager to murder people without evidence.
It is weird that at the end of the movie, they're like, all right, so we're good. Yeah, let's hold hands for, they do this, handhold shake that clearly
They do two of them.
they edited it so it feels like it takes forever. They're just holding each other's hands. And then he goes, all right, now don't ever come to Inglewood. It's like, I thought you guys were cool. What happened?
They're cool as long as he doesn't come to Inglewood.
He's just afraid that they're gonna, start a Whole Foods there, or,
Yeah, this is really, Joseph
Martin
Kahn was
Henderson
just trying
is
to
going
talk
to
about
gentrify.
gentrification. Yeah.
Yeah. You're gonna have
I
a
would-
real, artisanal motorcycle shop.
I would really love Joseph Kahn to do a movie about gentrification. 100% if I could pick any Joseph Kahn movie. It would just take place in Brooklyn. Not a lot would happen.
So should we just start talking about race? The thing that's always fun to talk about, especially being three white guys. But Joseph Kahn's last movie, Bodied, is all about race and the way we talk about it. And he's a Korean American. So I know his heart is always in the right place. This movie's pretty racist. Would we agree?
In
It's
weirdly
not-
specific ways.
Yeah.
It's not so much it's
subtle.
racist, but the way it deals with race is very weird.
There's a fair amount of tokenism, which I think is something that the Fast and the Furious movies too, actually do a decent job of not falling too much into tokenism. But if you look at it that way, it's a diverse cast kind of on purpose too. And this has that feeling because it's a white lead with a white girlfriend who hangs out with his, minority pals.
Yeah, well, I think the difference between this and Fast and the Furious and as kind of cartoony and not subtle as the Fast and the Furious movies are, they really care about those characters. They want you to like Taj
Yeah.
and Roman, and they've got several movies to get you to like those characters, but none of the characters in Torque have any sort of depth whatsoever, and I don't think
No.
Joseph Kahn wants to give them depth. I think he's heightening up the fact that they're just oh, that's nerd friend, that's tough friend, that's girlfriend, that's mean lady. Everyone's just a total archetype.
God, the villainess is incredible.
Oh,
just
Jamie
like
Presley.
every single time they cut to her, she's licking her lips. It's a lot. I trying to imagine the amount of money spent on Carmex or lip balm for her. Just had to probably do a line item in the budget to keep her from
The
chapping her lips
eyeshadow
super bad.
budget.
Yeah.
Assistant to Mrs. Presley's lips.
There are weirdly two actors from My Name Is Earl in this movie, which tells you just when it was made.
I don't think that really tells you anything about the movie.
I don't know. It's just a weird coincidence. I liked that show back when it was on, before I found out how Jason Lee is a Scientologist.
So, this movie is made 2004, and it screams, well, it's made 2003. It screams that at you through most of the movie. It also kind of assumes you've seen the Fast and the Furious. The
Right.
biggest question I want to ask is, Gavin, aside
Yeah.
from Adam Scott and Ice Cube, did you recognize anyone in this movie?
I do not believe so.
And also the guy who is in Fast and Furious, Matt Schultz.
Oh, that's right. I recognized him. Yes.
Yeah. 'Cause I know you've seen that.
And I kept thinking his second in command was Leon Greyjoy, but it's not.
Yeah, he's Alfie Allen. So all these people were briefly famous. Like, if you were paying attention to not the AAA movies that came out, like Jay Hernandez, the Latin biker, is in Hostel. He is the only person that survives Hostel. This is a spoiler cast, sorry. I'll go ahead and not spoil his role in Hostel 2, though, because that seems fair enough. And he's in, like, Goal, and he's in a lot of other contemporary movies that were, like, mid to big hits. Martin Henderson, I don't know why I'm actually blanking on more things. I can only think of him in Smoking Aces, which was, like, 2 years later. This is the Martin Henderson
I've seen both
movie.
Hostel and Smoking Aces and did not remember.
Hostel you probably should. But Smoking Aces is a movie where Martin Henderson is, like, 12th billed, because that is an all-star extravaganza.
That was just a tangent for a second. I was trying to think of a movie that went as fast as this movie did into macho posturing and fist fighting. And funnily enough, the first of the J. Abrams Star Trek movies is like the only other movie I could think of that almost immediately went into just ridiculous posturing and fist fights. But that one is structured so that the guy fighting multiple people gets the shit beat out of him, and that's part of his character. This one, not only is he taking on two dudes who, drive cars really fast, he can also easily take them. So you're messing with he's a badass. Yeah. This Ford character, Henry character, Ford character.
And then the third biker of their initial crew, the Asian gentleman, is William Lee, who was just in the James Bond movie that no one likes, Die Another Day.
Pierce Brosnan.
But that was a big action movie, and then he's in Torque. And more recently, he's got a leading role in Altered Carbon as the original Takeshi Kovacs. He's an actor that I really like seeing. And then his girlfriend in the movie is Christina Milani, who's a musician that was pretty big around the time. So everything kind of hits you like as contemporary as it is. If you know your film history, you can watch this movie and pinpoint exactly when it's made.
Can we talk about Monet or Monette Mazur?
We sure can.
Playing the
She's
role of
great
girlfriend.
in this.
Okay, see, I strongly disagree. I think she kind of tanks the movie in that. So, like I said, there are two Torques, or maybe I didn't say that, but I'm saying it again. There's the Torque that
the two Torques.
It depends on the one you feed. That's a Tomorrowland reference. Anyway, so there are two Torques. There's the one that the random white guy wrote. I don't remember his name. He's the guy who wrote like Into the Blue. And that movie's really bad. And I think some of the cast is still in that movie. And like they're still like playing it straight, which you need to play it straight to some degree. But just Monet is just... She really is a nothing actor, and her performance is just kind of nothing. I feel bad. I mean, a lot of it's just that she has nothing to do, whereas, like, Adam Scott just shows in, and you just want to applaud, because he just, like, the way he's styled, you get that character, and you get the joke right away.
The
and there's
close-ups
no real
of the Converse and the white tee under the...
The fact that he's an FBI agent and he's dressed like he's a member of the Strokes, I just think is so funny.
Yeah.
But Monet is just, she's like tough. She's like the girlfriend who's kind of tough and she can hold her own and ride a bike, but also she's sort of the damsel in distress and, she'll have her chick fight at the end.
Well, and also, Adam Scott's partner, who if you want to talk about weird sexism in this movie, like she's introed as like, yeah, I know she's pretty, but don't worry, she's also a good FBI agent. And that is our intro to that character. And it reads real weird.
Yeah, I feel like the whole joke with the FBI agents is Joseph Kahn seeing the Fast and the Furious, where you have a lot of FBI agents and, police officers who are all way too young. And so I think he's taking that like one step further by like, what if we really stylize them like they're just people in college, but they have badges, and it's like the little baby FBI guys.
And I still try to figure out if that works or not with Adam Scott, because Adam Scott is about 30 when this movie comes out, I think. He's a lot older than you think, because he still looks 19 in this movie. And that always bothered. I'd also never seen Adam Scott in anything before I saw this movie. I looked through his IMDb this morning, and I did not recognize anything that I had seen pre-2003 Torque.
I believe he's in Star Trek Insurrection.
First Contact. But I haven't
First
seen
Contact,
that.
yeah.
And for all I know, he's in makeup as the third in command of the bad guy.
Yeah, he's just like on the bridge of a ship that I think blows up. It's not a big role, so yeah. This is pre Adam Scott popping, but I feel like he doesn't get his role in Step Brothers without this. Like he's playing a very similar vibe. Like I love anytime Adam Scott's an asshole, and is just delighting in being an asshole. But
Is
obviously,
he in A Good Place? Is that where I'm picturing him from too?
yes, and he plays a great asshole in A Good Place.
Right, he's perfect.
Have we mentioned the fact that this movie made $0 at the box office and was a tremendous failure?
We have not.
So this movie, the budget was $40 million, which is $2 million more than the budget for The Fast and the Furious, which they have the same producer. I don't know if we mentioned that yet, Neil Moritz.
Wow.
So it's like a ripoff, but it's a sanctioned ripoff. But yeah,
Right.
so The Fast and the Furious,
It's part of the
huge hit.
family.
Familia. The Fast and the Furious made like $200 million worldwide, most of that in the U.S., but still just gigantic hit. Torque made a tenth of that. It made only $20 million domestically and like another 20 worldwide. So this was a huge disaster financially. And on Rotten Tomatoes, it's got like 20%. On Letterboxd, it has like 2.1 out of 5.
I
This
understand
is a very unsuccessful movie.
why people wouldn't like this movie, but I do look at the Rotten Tomatoes and IMDb, and I am kind of shocked how many people just don't back up that, like, I mean, it's pretty fun.
Well, it's
I
hard
think
to
the problem-
rate a movie on a 1 out of 10 scale when it's good bad, you know?
True. I think people also just don't get the joke. I think it's so subtle, and people need their comedy spoon-fed to them in some regards. Like, I remember when They Came Together came out, which is like obviously making fun of romantic comedies and like movies in general. And I love that movie. I think it's hilarious. You go on IMDb and they're just filled with comments being like, I don't get this. This movie's fucking terrible, because they just don't get the joke. They don't get that. They don't get that it's like trying to be a parody of the movie. And I feel like the same thing with Torque is that took it at face value and thought it was a dumb movie about bikers and didn't realize that it's intentionally a dumb movie about bikers, you know? Which, if you're not like into film like we are, I could see maybe missing the fact that like all of the jokes are like purely visual. You know, there are no good jokes in the dialogue of this movie. It's just the fact that like Joseph Kahn will cover a whole scene just in the reflections from like the rearview mirrors on a motorcycle, and then he'll also have like a shot like the way Ice Cube is introduced via knife reflection. Someone drops like a big knife and you see a reflection on the ground, and then they pick it up, and then that's how you see Ice Cube for the first time. Like, that's funny to me because like it's inherently ridiculous, and you can kind of like play a drinking game with all the reflection shots. But if you don't get that that's a joke and you're just watching like the plot unfold, there's nothing funny about this movie at all.
Right. I can completely vouch for that, because this is probably the third time I've seen the movie. And the first time, like, I kind of forgot about it. And then, like I said, I went back to check it out when Detention came out. I was like, oh, there's actually a lot to love in this movie. But it's not until this last time, now that I've been exposed to so much more film and have worked in the industry for 8 years now, it's just, like, visually ridiculous. And all I really remembered from the earlier times was when it just turns into a weird video game near the end. But everything is heightened. Everything that you liked about Fast and Furious is like thrown into your face in ways that doesn't respect the original movie.
Yeah,
no,
like
but
the
there's
Fast and
also
the Furious-
that. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, so in like the Fast and the Furious, you know, they'll always have those like girls. It's like butts on cars. Like even in the good ones, they still have to have like one shot. This movie has like, all right, we're gonna have like 20 butts on cars instead
Like the
of
culture montage at the beginning with Kid Rock is a lot. For sure.
Yeah, exactly.
Lot.
And if
Instead
you
of
don't
just
get
like
that he's doing it,
3 women dancing at the beginning of a car race with like short skirts, you have a slow push-in where it is 5 women like scrubbing themselves in a pit of water as they look directly at the camera. Just in case there's any doubts that you were at Bike Week.
those music video skills heavily being shown off here. And that, when you mentioned that this cost more than the Fast and the Furious movie, that kind of, it didn't surprise me, but I think there's an element of like, this movie looks great at times, but looks so much worse, but it's trying to do so much more with what it can. Joseph Kahn is really pushing the envelope on what they could do at this time, it feels like. And it doesn't look pretty all the time.
Yeah,
That
there's
video
a lot
game,
of visual effects
yeah,
in this. Well, there's watching just some of his videos today, he's really big on CG in ways that he's not
Right.
trying to pass it off for real. Like, I wrote down, I don't know, did you guys catch all the CGI windmills in the beginning? Where it's like at that little
Yeah.
restaurant he gets in the fight. And, you know, I think Rob Cohen, who directed The Fast and the Furious, he's going to use CGI for like the big flashy trailer shots, but Joseph Kahn's going to use CG in like everything just to make
Right.
everything larger than life. So it's
At
not
all
just
times.
the fact that there's a couple windmills in the background and they'll go to a location that actually has windmills. He's like, no, we're going to shoot it at this location I found, and I'm going to paint in 1,000 windmills and an
just add
improbable
windmills.
amount of windmills. And
There's so many
yeah,
in
it looks
every
bad,
direction.
but it's fun.
It is so much
Yeah,
fun. There's
and
also,
he-
did you
he
catch
does-
the CGI cat, Adam, this time?
no.
I pointed
I
out,
only
like,
noticed it because you told me about that.
there's only
which-
one in this movie, which is as they first go into the diner early in the movie. It's just a dolly shot kind of to the diner and just passes a fat little cat and you hear meow. And it happens fast enough that you wouldn't know it's a CGI cat, except that of course it is because it's Joseph Kahn. And if you watch Bodied and pay attention, he just adds CGI cats into probably not every scene, but most of them. Most scenes in that movie have a background cat who knocks something over.
So you're suggesting Joseph Kahn
Is an artist,
is
yes.
an auteur. Yeah. He's an auteur.
Yeah, I would
Auteur
say
theory
he's an
living
auteur.
alive and strong.
Also, so I watched Bodied, and we're not talking about Bodied here, but just this is my one interaction with Joseph Kahn on Twitter, because he's very active on Twitter, although I eventually had to stop following him because his political takes are terrible, and I got tired of seeing them. But I asked him
Joseph
about
Kahn
the cats.
says, bring back rooftop Koreans. Hey, Sage here, transitioning into this podcast seamlessly from the future. You can't even tell. So I've been getting a lot of feedback that people don't understand what Joseph Kahn and I mean by rooftop Koreans. And I think it's fascinating enough that I'm not just going to cut it from the podcast. So here's some context. So I live in Koreatown, Los Angeles, and 28 years ago, my neighborhood was an epicenter in the Rodney King riots of 1992. After the brutal beating and the lack of conviction for the officers responsible. During these events, a lot of businesses in the area, Korean-owned businesses, were stripped and robbed, and there was no police protection as the entire city was in disarray. Korean business owners took it upon themselves to patrol and protect their neighborhood, often from their own rooftops, armed. If you want to learn more about this and see that footage, there's a fantastic documentary called LA 92 that is currently on Netflix, which also jumps between the Watts riots of 1965. And those Watts riots are exactly on the other side of Rodney King as the George Floyd protests of last year were. Back to Torque.
Yeah, Joseph Kahn is also a big Amy Klobuchar fan, which I don't even think Amy Klobuchar's family likes Amy Klobuchar. But anyway, I asked him about
The choice
cats
is
and
right
bodies.
there, Adam. It's in front of you.
I asked him about the CGI cat. That's clearly CGI, clearly a deliberate choice. And I'm like, what does this mean? And so I asked him that, and he just responds, "What cat?" End of conversation. So
That's wonderful.
the man is a real troll in the purest sense of the word. Like, he revels in doing things just for the lulz. But thankfully, I think he's a well-intentioned troll where he just likes to have fun. He's not like I'm going to, dox female reporters kind of troll. He just likes to have a laugh. We haven't talked yet about his Power Rangers short film that he made in 2015, which
Right.
I just
which
watched that
is
today.
actually something I had seen by him probably even before I saw Bodied. I just didn't connect the name.
He self-funded that. It's deliberately like using Power Rangers names. So there's no way legally he can make a profit off of it. He could make something like that and tweak the name and then, get the ad revenue on YouTube. Instead, he deliberately burned like $250,000 or however much it cost to make that short. I don't have the exact number. Just for a joke. And then I was reading an interview about it, trying to get to the bottom of like why he did this. And in it they asked, "Oh, do you want to make like a feature-length Power Rangers movie?" And he said, "God, no." like he wasn't even trying to get a job. He was just I don't know who does that. And that's what I find fascinating about him. And this movie, yeah, it's just a huge troll. This was his first film. He was so well established. He could have made anything he wanted. But he chooses to take this job that he knows, like, people are going to think it's a dumb movie about bikes because it is a dumb movie about bikes. But he thinks it'd be funny to, like, kind of poke fun at that. And he, in doing so, he sort of sabotages his career as a feature director because his next movie isn't for, like, another 8 years or so, 6 years. And he has to self-fund that as well. No one brought the money to detention. He self-funded that for, like $5 million out of pocket. Maybe he had some investors, but
he just
lost
missed
a
the
lot of money on
Kickstarter GoFundMe craze. If you Joseph Kahn had a blog, I think it's just josephkahn.blogspot.com, which was something that I had bookmarked for a while because every time something was up, it was crazy. And he made a mock Kickstarter after the movie had been made, and complaining about, like, yeah, I really wish that this was a thing when I was trying to get my movie made and no one would help make it. And one of the options is like, for $1 million, you can haunt anyone in the cast. You can use a bow and arrow. We have to call you Katniss.
What a strange, strange man.
Can we talk about one of my favorite scenes in Torque? Which, you know, is a movie with not a lot of, like, good scenes. And again, talking about, like, the humor mostly coming from, like, the visual choices or, like, the directorial choices. There's a bit where they all decide to, like, go to wherever they need to go, and, like, they're like, you know, it's like the transition from Act 1 to Act 2, and they just keep passing around a shotgun.
Right, at the diner.
It's just like, it's like the one thing where, like, yeah, it's like, because in a normal movie, you'd have, like, the cool gag where someone tosses the buddy a shotgun and he catches it and it's like, all right, let's ride. But he has them do that, like, five times. And it passes from, like, every person in the cast, and eventually one person's left with, like, 2 shotguns just standing at the gas station alone. I don't think I noticed that the first 2 times I watched this movie. But
well, that's also hilarious. What we're not introduced to. So this is, like, they're leaving the Bike Week party. The Asian guy has a girl with him. Shane's with Ford, and then the Latin guy's by himself. And the TV has shown that there's a bounty out on Ford or whatever. And so the locals come out with shotguns. They're beaten up. The shotguns are taken. Everyone's just kind of laughing about it and, like, chill. And then the Asian guy tells his girlfriend, it's like, all right, find your own way home. It's too dangerous out here for you. Hang on to these shotguns. Have fun. And she's never seen again. Stay at this
crime scene with 2 shotguns. Find your own way home.
Yeah. And I was starting to assume that she'd be a big character and she'd be, like, evil, and she was, like, feeding, you know, their whereabouts to the Hellions.
But no.
There's no time for that much female development in this movie.
No, she's just never seen again. Never spoken of. They just, you know, the end of it is that, like, they go down to Mexico.
I think I already forgot this woman. Is she the one where Jay Hernandez?
Yes.
Yes, Jay Hernandez, right? Yeah. He, like, goes to open the door, and there's a woman on someone's bed wearing a motorcycle helmet, implying that the guy has a fetish for having sex with women while they wear a motorcycle helmet.
Let's not kink shame anybody here, but
no, I'm not kink shaming anyone, but it is just it's a choice that someone made. It's an interesting choice. That's like the one joke in the movie that feels like it's from the script.
Yeah, most of the jokes, especially the visual gags, feel like they improve a scene that was not good in a screenplay. I really want to talk about the cinematography in this movie. Does everyone have a favorite shot in the movie?
There's a few times when I got really excited in terms of things that were going to happen. So I just want to go over a couple of those, I guess. When our hero jumps through, like, unnecessarily drives through a bunch of glass, And they show that like several times. He actually lands, and then they still cut to a close-up of his face as glass just like bounces off of him while he's standing super serious. And that just is the way this movie is edited and shot, is just these big moments and then like small close-ups really set the pace for a lot of how this movie works. And it never gets old for me. It's the best part of, cut to the inside of an engine, all CGI and silly, and then cut back to someone being super serious. Just so you know, if this is a joke, this is a serious joke, and you better pay some fucking respect.
Yeah, I don't know if I have a favorite shot. I mean, the movie is just visually so over the top. It's like
mirrors and
assaulting how stylized everything is. It's all the mirror shots. The camera, at least for like the first act, I think every shot is on the ground. Like the camera is on the ground for so much of it. The colors are so saturated in that real early 2000s kind of style. Yeah, I don't know if anything I would particularly say is like my favorite shot, but one that I really noticed, and it's a good example of like the tone of this movie, is it's like the introduction of like I think a party. I should have taken more notes on the plot because I don't remember the plot, and I watched this movie like 12 hours ago. But it's just an establishing shot, which normally, you'd have it like camera be on the ground, maybe it's on a crane or like a helicopter or something. Or you start the camera a football field away and you have it like push in
just
at
morph
100
cut
miles
through,
an hour for no reason. Like you're on a motorcycle, like racing,
speed it up from there.
You're gonna crash. Who would do? Oh, we also should talk about. I did take notes on this movie. One of the things I took notes on is when they're in like the club in the beginning. The club just has spark machines on the balcony and the sides. Which totally makes sense for like a music video, but you think about like the practicality of like a club. Could you imagine like going to your favorite bar and like, okay, you got to be careful over there because that's where they have the spark machine. What does it do? Oh, it just it just makes sparks for fun. It seems like that would be a building code hazard. Like could probably start a lot of fires.
This is already a club where like no one is too freaked out that someone was murdered in the bathroom. Like the people involved take it seriously, but you've got a lot of background. I was like, this again. It's treated very casual.
It's biker culture.
You took my favorite shot for sure, so I'm just going to echo Ice Cube's introduction in the reflection of a knife.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. Oh god, also Ice Cube has the best line in the movie, I think. It's like he just pulls up and he says, "I heard you were in Indochina eating sushi and shit."
That's pretty good.
It's like
that
only
exchange,
Ice Cube
Junior,
could sell that
I think sushi's in Japan. I know where's sushi from. It's fucking amazing.
Well, and that's something that comes back.
Yeah, why do they say Indochina so many times in this movie? I've never heard the term Indochina
in 2003. Before. It's a very specific joke. Yes, Thailand is a part of Indochina. Indochina is just like French Southeast Asia. So Vietnam, Thailand, Cambodia. I don't know Laos. I don't know necessarily where those boundaries stop. But it feels weird that they would know enough to like be additionally racist.
Well, and they call attention to like one of the villains uses the word chink a bunch, and Ford's like, can't even be racist, right? I wasn't in China.
I was in Indochina.
Yeah, which you would think that a Korean American director would be like, hey, can we lose all these like jokes that are like racist against Asia? But yeah, exactly. I think Joseph Kahn thinks that's funny in a way that's like, I can't say it's funny, but clearly like he kept it for a reason, and I don't think he's trying to make any sort of statement. I think he just thinks it's funny to have the characters be racist because then they're gonna die at the end.
It seems like a moment of like, well, I'm Asian, so I can say this. Which might be...
Except for he's having white people say it.
Yeah, which, like, there's a lot to discuss there, because I always think, especially in, like, your shitty action movies, it's maybe okay to have your villain be outwardly racist. I don't know if you always should do that, but there's certainly an argument to be made there.
I don't know.
Do you guys... It happens so fast you almost didn't catch it, but there's a thing at the end, the big fight, where Ice Cube... gets like the second in command or whatever of like the main heads, wraps a chain around him, and then the chain like goes up over like the rafters, and this guy is essentially lynched. And Ice Cube just says, "Ain't that ironic?" And it cuts to the next scene before you even can realize how fucking insane that is. That they made that comment.
Wait, I thought that was in reference to something else.
It's so bizarre. I mean, I guess it could be, oh, isn't it ironic because you killed my brother with a chain? But it's specifically the way he's hung is like that of a lynching. It's like hoisted above the rafters. I don't know. I kind of gasped when that moment happened. It's this movie. Transitioning from race just for a moment because, yeah, I want to revise my favorite shot in the movie because, you know, we all know what a dolly zoom is, right? But if you don't know what a dolly zoom is, you know, there's the really famous one in Jaws and like Vertigo, is where like it's where you like you essentially push in while you zoom out, so whoever's in the subject stays the same.
It either
but,
feels like the world's
like,
expanding
really
or crushing in on your subject.
Yeah, it's a fairly common technique you see in movies a lot. This movie is the only time I've ever seen a double dolly zoom used once, because it's Ice Cube is like scouting out on the horizon, thinking about like what to do, and it dolly zooms in, and then it dolly zooms out as he's like making up his mind. It's so wild, and just the fact that he was able to do that and they let it be in the movie is insane.
I also just got, because I you know, I've done the drive down California a bunch, and I'm always watching those palm tree farms go by and being like, wow, that's so beautiful. I want to go check that place out. And so I was so excited when they set a chase scene in a palm tree farm.
It's pretty dope.
And
yeah, that's a fun
I was
sequence.
not ready for where that would go either, which, you know, we get that kind of fun Return of the Jedi, like rushing through all these trees, there's shotguns, really weird line.
When a guy pulls out 2 pistols when he's on a motorcycle.
Right. So much of this movie is people just clear. I don't really believe that Ice Cube knows how to ride a motorcycle by the end of this movie.
The shot where Ice Cube pulls out a map,
right.
and it's
Oh
just
my God,
casually
it's
reading
so
a map while
incredible.
He's going 75 miles an hour on a motorcycle.
That was my favorite. And then, so he's got that other guy who's got both pistols out, and he's still just driving through really treacherous palm tree.
Through rocky terrain.
That's like, it's basically all speed bumps. So everyone, you know, is having to accelerate and decelerate to stay on their bikes, I'd assume. And then...
yeah, and these are mountain bikes.
Um,
or like, dirt bikes. They're, I wonder, motorcycle people must hate this movie. Like, if you're a motorcycle nut and you love all the specific brands, you've got to just despise this movie.
Right. Well, except for, you know, when you drop a Rolls Royce airplane engine.
Oh, yes, a Rolls-Royce helicopter engine in a crotch rocket.
Yeah. That's gonna get you excited. That's what you're waiting
I take
for.
it back. That's still my favorite shot in the movie, is like the very ending of the video game inspired
That
chase
shit is
sequence.
so wild. And that is just like another
It's
step
so
up.
wild. It goes
because
full
they're
crank.
going, I don't even know how fast, like 200 miles.
3,000 miles per hour.
And the villain is turning around. You don't have time
downtown
to
Los
turn around
Angeles.
and look behind you at that speed, to let alone fire a gun and aim. That's insane.
They are kick fighting while like going around other cars as if they're standing still.
Yeah, my God.
At one point, like, there's a gas leak and someone shoots it, so you have a bike being chased by another bike being chased by fire.
Yeah.
Just the whole time. If he slows down at all, that fire will catch up to you and your helicopter engine will explode.
It's just nuts that someone can see that and think that that's a mistake. You know, like that whole sequence, like people see that. And I bet you if you go on like YouTube and you look at the clip on like movie clips or whatever, I'm sure all the comments are going to be like, oh, this looks so terrible. This looks so fake. What were they thinking? Just completely missing the fact that like it's a deliberate choice to go full
that would be
cartoon
something
at the
Cinema
end.
Sens says about like the type of motorcycle, while ignoring that like there's at least 10 instances where a woman calls another woman a bitch.
Well, and that's kind of where this movie, again, like when you're talking about the budget and the similarities between this and the Fast and the Furious, is like the Fast and the Furious is like an indie drama that is very rooted in like sincerity, and it comes off as silly at times. Like it's not a funny movie, but the tone change between these two and the way they look in their finales is just so jarringly different. I love them both. They're both a lot of fun, but
The finale of the Fast and the Furious, which I just watched a couple months ago. It's two guys who are like at odds with each other, and they have to jump a train track before the train hits them. That's it. Like, that's the climax of the movie. Whereas in Torque, they're driving on top of the train
scene comes
There's a
halfway
motorcycle
through.
chase sequence through a train.
Yeah. Oh man. I was so happy.
I would love Joseph Kahn to direct a Mission Impossible movie. I'm just gonna.
He
throw
seems
that
like he
out
really
there.
wants to. I think the closest you're gonna get is again like Britney Spears' Toxic. Just throwing it out there. A lot of
I
laser
would have
dancing.
loved for him to direct Mission Impossible 2.
I mean, we already got the perfect Mission Impossible 2, but I would have enjoyed him to take on the first one, or one of the more recent ones would be fun. There's still time.
I would have loved him to direct the De Palma script.
Yeah, would have been great.
Oh my god. Well, I forgot to pay the podcast bill, so we do only have like 20 minutes left. So I hate to.
Right. They race across the top of a moving train, and then this is when Ice Cube decides to start trusting Ford because he pulls him off, and then they stare at each other through a train until Ford just disappears.
That's right. I forgot he does like the Bourne Identity trick where he just the train passes by and he's gone.
And then in the next shot, he's just like walking through the desert.
Yeah. It's just Ice Cube just lost track of him.
And then
got the memory
there
of
are
a
multiple
attention span of a
times
goldfish.
in this movie where a motorcycle sneaks up on someone.
Wait, do we talk about the
No,
motorcycle
and that's my
fight,
favorite part.
between
Yeah.
Jamie Presley
What's
and...
your favorite product placement in this movie, Gavin?
Yeah, the Mountain Dew versus Pepsi scene. It's incredible. My God. What is that line that opens up that? What is it?
Oh, I don't know. I'm sure the word bitch is in it.
You want some of this, bitch?
Yeah,
I thought
Yes.
you'd never ask. Poetry, really. Shakespeare.
I mean, this is... If this movie was made today, I think those are honestly the only things I would really want changed is some of the gender dynamics in here. I'd leave the racism as is.
Yeah,
Joseph Kahn
heard
knows
it
what
here
he's doing.
first.
Jesus Christ.
But honestly, so the fight scene between the two of them.
No, this is the line.
What?
I found
Go
it.
ahead.
Oh, I found the line.
Thank you.
It's between the characters China and Shane. China says,
You messed with the wrong chick!
to which Shane replied,
Looks like you did, bitch.
Yes.
how did this movie not win the Oscar for Best Original Screenplay as well?
All right, but
Oh my
so
god.
that scene compared to the one that follows, which is the one that we discussed with like the kind of just insane bad CGI look to it. This one feels much more grounded. They're bike jousting, barely missing each other and like punching.
It's very Mission Impossible too.
But specifically when they both do the wheelies and just clang the fronts of their motorcycles together, I'm just like, oh, this is beautiful. I'm here for it.
That scene also does the Fast and Furious 6 thing where they are in a limited space going fast and they just go forever.
Right.
I'm of course referring to the runway where they have like a 6-minute chase sequence where a plane hasn't taken off in 6 minutes.
And they're just like pulling, well, what's her face too? There's a lot of butterfly knives in this movie, which is fun to see.
Yes. Jamie Presley loves her a butterfly knife.
But yeah, they're pulling like an almost Three Stooges of just like riding exactly next to each other. No one turning or like swerving or anything and just trying to poke each other's eyes. It's very charming.
We haven't mentioned the most iconic line of the movie, which is when Ford says, I live my life a quarter mile at a time.
I live my life a quarter mile at a time.
And Shane says, that is the dumbest
Right.
thing I've ever heard.
Yeah, and I also wonder, so this movie, Joseph Kahn has gone on record talking about like the behind the scenes struggle for like creative control, which feels ridiculous with the movie that we got, but there are things where like there are very clearly ADR joke followed by ADR joke by the same person.
Right.
And like Ford is completely walking away when that line is said. You do not see him say it. I feel like almost every scene in this movie has a double ADR joke, and it's hard to imagine that's Joseph Kahn's choice.
I know Ice Cube has a couple of those in this, and they were painful. They were not high points.
Yeah. And that's, as we've watched more and more
My-
movies from the 90s and 2000s, there's so many double jokes that I don't feel like happens as much anymore. Hopefully we've moved on as film viewers.
There's one ADR joke that it feels like a studio note, but the way it's delivered is so funny. Because, you remember when the Fast and the Furious came out, everyone was always talking about how, like, oh, they should be dead. No one would survive these crashes. Back when we were all taking them, like, kind of seriously. And so there's the moment where the FBI's Hummer, does a big flip and it just lands upside down, crashes, and then it just cuts to Adam Scott and his partner being perfectly fine. And in a clearly ADR line, Adam Scott says, and I'll try to do his intonation as perfectly as possible, just says, "Thank God for airbags."
Yes.
And, like, that has to be a joke, but it's also clearly, like, a studio note of, like, well, how did they survive?
But that's also...
Also, a second after that, he
people
says,
are going to wonder how they
shut
lived.
Up, in, like, the weirdest tone. Oh, man. That's such a weird moment. Oh, boy.
By the way, Adam Scott did not respond to me on Twitter about this movie.
He what?
I hit up Adam Scott on Twitter yesterday, hoping he would have some stories from the set, and he did not respond. Sadly.
It seems we may have overestimated your pull once again.
Well, I was hoping that, so few people ask Adam Scott about Torque that he's just like, oh, you want to know about that one?
I feel like if I was Adam Scott, I would be very excited anytime someone asks me about Torque.
So I listened to Adam Scott's YouTube podcast, which is now Talking Heads or Red Hot Chili Peppers podcast.
Consistent.
And Torque has come up a couple times, but I can never get the sense of if he's proud of this movie or embarrassed by it. Clearly, it was like a big deal for him at the time, but I don't know if this is like something that he holds near and dear to his heart.
This was his opportunity to work with Joseph Kahn.
I'll go on record and say he's great in this movie. Yeah. He's got some weird lines, but he is enjoyable, and his turn as villain is not smooth, but I wouldn't put that on him. There's just a weird, I don't know. How'd you guys feel about that the first time you saw this, do you think?
That's definitely like the cliche thing that would happen in this kind of a movie. That kind of like late in the movie double cross, It's not shocking because, oh no, the guy who's after us is also
who's been quirky and eccentric and totally willing to, like, when he's chasing them on the freeway, he just is driving through random bystanders' cars.
Oh god, that's so funny.
Just
it's a
destroying
full-on
people.
Fast Five.
Without mercy or
they
like
plow through multiple cars at once. And then it cuts to Adam Scott just casually drinking a Diet Pepsi.
I also thought he was drinking beer, and I was unsure.
Well, they frame that logo very prominently, which, man, just seeing that old Diet Pepsi logo, because I used to pound like a case a week of that stuff. It really brought me back.
This is that nostalgia cast for that Diet Pepsi send back. You feel me?
I don't know. There's something about like old logos where it's just like feels like Diet Pepsi used to taste different when it had that logo.
I respect that.
They put different chemicals on the logo that would seep into the actual product. Well, I could talk about Torque for another couple hours, but I'm not kidding when I say that I did not pay for more podcast time. So I would love to move on to our final judgments and just find out how much we all equally love this movie.
So in case this is your first episode of this show, I'm going to go over the rating system that we have established.
Thank you for joining us on Torque.
Is this movie still good? Is it better as a memory? Or is this something that we should bury in the ground and never speak of again? I feel like usually the person who brought it goes first. So Sage, would you do the honors?
Sure. I'm trying to get past my implicit bias in this podcast and not rate everything that I bring as it's still good. It's not. I never really thought it was. I mean, it is better as a memory, but the idea of what it almost was is good. Like, it is a movie that knows what it is, and you can see the studio trying to make it as, like, mass-pleasing as possible, which makes it less pleasing to me. But it did introduce me to Joseph Kahn, and that's worth a fucking lot to me.
I'm going to go ahead and say I feel like implicit bias is okay in our rating system. The criteria is not well defined.
Right. But if I can't look at a product afterwards and be honest and be like, nah, it's not good. It is better than I thought it was.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Like, we don't always bring things we think are good.
No.
We bring things we love.
Yeah. Adam, where do you fall?
Yeah, I sort of would say that I agree with you guys in that the movie is just so close to being great. Like in my notes I wrote, is this the Starship Troopers of
That was
motorcycle
something I was
movies?
thinking
And
about a lot during
it
this
almost
movie,
is.
was that tone of Starship Troopers is a really, really great parallel to this. Sorry, I just wanted to back you up on that.
Yeah. The problem is that just a lot of this movie is just kind of a drag. It's kind of like the Mission Impossible 2 thing, where like when this movie's being really over the top and stupid, it's great. But then there's a good chunk in the middle that's just the movie it's making fun of. And that's just kind of not as much fun to sit through. And there's like some weird kind of race elements that I like sit a little uncomfortably with me. There's also, it's got a god-awful soundtrack. I mean,
we didn't
we
talk
got Kid
about
Rock. It ends on a
the
Nickelback
hoopa
song.
stank of it all. It ends with a Nickelback
Yeah, they drive
song.
off into the sunset to Nickelback.
Yeah.
Friend of the pod.
I'll give 2 answers, by the way. I will say it's a I forgot what the terms were. I'm
Still
sorry.
good, better as a memory, or bury it in the ground.
I will say still good if this sounds like a movie you would enjoy. If this kind of over the top, winky, dumb ride sounds appealing to you, I would say give it a watch. It's a really wild. You're never going to see a movie quite like Torque, even though it's not good. But you'll get your time's worth. It's streaming for free on Roku TV right now with ads. It's an hour and a half. Have a couple beers, make fun of it with your friends. But for me, I would say I'm at better as a memory point. I don't need to ever watch Torque again. I will keep watching what Joseph Kahn puts out, and maybe I'll rewatch Body or Detention at some point. But yeah, I don't think I never need to go back to Torque. Even though I do love a lot of it.
I mean, this kind of falls into that. What you guys were talking about is it's kind of difficult to rate this kind of movie, and that's why it probably seems so weird to look at its rating on like Metacritic or Rotten Tomatoes, because it is a good bad movie. Like, it is a very fun, very dumb movie.
I'm very glad I rewatched this movie.
And so me having never seen it for the first time, the better as a memory thing is kind of weird for me to say. And like, to me, it is dancing between like a good movie and something that's better in your imagination, because like this movie is kind of wilder than my imagination at times. Like, the finale with the bad CGI is not something my brain would picture when I try and come up with that. Like, I don't even know if Joseph Kahn really had that figured out until like he was in post and he's like, oh, so this is what this looks like. All right.
I can't storyboard that.
Because this movie's nuts. So like, honestly, I'm torn between better as a memory and still good, having never seen it before even. I'm going to kind of piggyback on Adam. I'm going to call it probably better as a memory, but if you haven't seen it, it's totally worth seeing if you want to see a fucking nuts, silly Fast and the Furious sendup that has a lot of, maybe heart's not the right word, but like it's swinging for the bleachers. It's like not pulling punches. It's really going for what it can be, and I got no criticism for that, really. Like, I'm really glad they tried as much batshit stuff as they could.
Where does this rank in the Fast and Furious movies? Like, if you had to sandwich it between 2 Fast and Furious movies.
Oh, above 2, and probably below the rest of them.
I agree.
I'm going to put it above 1 and just behind Point Break.
I mean, that is official canon, but I don't.
Probably about the same as the Point Break remake, which is also like crazy over the top. And like, why and how does this movie exist?
Maybe I should check that out.
It's got some of the craziest practical stunts you will ever see in a movie.
I mean, that's cool. That's not a bad selling point. So
It's really its only selling point.
do you want to try and do a couple reviews? Does this count? Or the thing I'm recommending is the Point Break remake or something like that?
Oh, sure, yeah. That's if you like Torque. I would check out the Point Break remake. I'd check out everything else that Joseph Kahn has gotten to direct, especially that silly little Power Rangers shorts.
That short is pretty fun.
I will say, my recommendation is Josie and the Pussycats. It's very similar in that it looks similar because it's kind of mocking a lot of the music video styles that Joseph Kahn pioneered for
That's
like
fair,
Backstreet
yeah.
Boys and Britney Spears. And it's a similar thing where at the time I think critics and audiences didn't get that it was a satire. But watching it now, it's so obvious, and so I would recommend Josie and the Pussycats. It's streaming now on HBO. It's a fun, like, just girl hangout movie, and it's got good songs, and it's also a great, like, satire about commercialism and the music industry. I love that movie every time I watch it. It's light and fun and weird. It's also shot by Matthew Libatique, I think, who
Really?
is the Aronofsky DP.
Oh my.
Yeah. It's a great time. I highly recommend that movie.
Let's see. I think I'm going to recommend, just because, again, it's that, like, I do really love that blend of satire and earnesty, and it's something that often doesn't work. Like, I'm not a huge trauma fan, which, like, I feel like just is a little too self-aware. But one of my favorite horror movies and one of my favorite comedies, and I may have already recommended it, but, like, Scream is just amazing. And yeah,
I love Scream.
Doesn't share a lot with this movie, but in terms of mixing that earnestness and fun, these are both movies that, like, to different, little different mixtures, but they both do a really, really great job of mixing those together.
I would say Detention has a lot in common with Scream
Yes.
4, at the very least.
Scream
in,
4 is the
beginning,
second best of the Scream
like
movies.
the opening sequence of Detention.
Correct.
The other two are absolute garbage.
I think I would agree.
Correct.
There's a lot to liken to. I don't know. I can come back and talk about Scream because I love that movie. And I have a lot of opinions about the sequels, which, yeah, Scream 3 sucks dog.
It's very
dick.
bad.
Do not like Scream 3.
Well, I think we did it.
I mean, does anyone quickly,
Sorry to go out on that note.
does anyone quickly have a remake pitch? Otherwise, I'll just cut this and we'll move on.
Honestly, like, I do think Joseph Kahn kind of nailed this movie in terms of what it was trying to be. I don't know, like, I know you'd get the Point Break remake, basically, which, maybe not a
Yes.
bad thing. Again, I haven't seen it, but the trailer looked fine. And
That is weird, because even though I did not give this movie a still good, I don't know how to make this movie better.
yeah,
Other than, like, try again and see if it works.
I think I have an idea.
Now, I would say #release the Kahn cut.
this brings up that point of, like, sometimes more character development, like, honestly wouldn't make a movie better. I don't particularly like any of these actors, but I don't feel like I need to. I don't think this movie wants me to, and I don't think I really need to understand these characters any better to like this. I don't know if I'd like this movie more.
All right.
I have a
Fuck yeah.
remake pitch, sort of. You make the Fast and Furious version of Torque, where it's like dark and gritty, and, like, they're on the run and they're hiding, and you, like, slowly introduce all these characters, pretending as though
They have to go to Indochina.
pretending we love these people, and so you make the serious, earnest reboot of Torque, checking up on these characters nearly 20 years later. I don't know. I think there could be something there, because that is, like,
There
if
would
Torque
have
was
been
a success,
sequels. Yeah.
they would be doing the dark reboot.
That's a good point. I would watch a Martin Henderson prequel that just takes place in Thailand.
Yeah, and I'd watch their continued journeys in Mexico. Like,
That's right. They did go to Mexico. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Adam, and hopping in our time capsule to 2004. Where can we find you on the internet?
Yeah, I'm on Twitter at Adam Writegood. That's WRITE good. I don't know. I felt the need to spell that out. Yeah, I don't really have too much out there in the world. I don't have any podcasts or anything, but you can follow me on Twitter, where I've been making some art on my 20-year-old iBook in AppleWorks. So I'm having a lot of fun with that. Maybe I'll make some Torque-themed artwork and put it up there. I'm also on Letterboxd at Adam Boyer if you want to see my opinions about movies.
Please, AppleWorks 6, like the final scene in Torque.
Yeah, well, I made a painting of the iconic shot from Mission Impossible 2, and I think it turned out pretty great. I think I captured Tom Cruise's likeness in.
please send that, and we'll
pixels.
share it on at least the Instagram.
That's wonderful. That makes me so happy.
Will do.
Well, you can find Sage at holdforplane.whatevers. And and me at Gavin V. Murray at whatevers. Yeah, and if you're Joseph Kahn, go ahead and write in. It's stillgoodpod@gmail.com. All right.
We will put anything you send us on unfiltered. All right.
Thank you all.
How the hell
Bye.
we wind up like this? And why weren't we able to see the signs that we missed? And try to turn the tables. I wish you'd unclench your fists and unpack your suitcase. Lately there's been too much of this, but don't think it's too late. Nothing's wrong, just as long as you know that someday I will. Someday, somehow, I'm gonna make it alright, but not right now. I know you're wondering someday, somehow, I'm gonna make it alright, but not right now. I know you're wondering
Ford. Heard you was up in Indochina eating sushi and shit.
I thought sushi came from Japan.
Know where sushi come from?